Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. You loved our next guest on ER and The Good Wife, and now you can see Julianna Margulies in a new Nat Geo miniseries called The Hot Zone, where she plays real-life Army veterinarian Nancy Jacks, a doctor at the center of a possible Ebola outbreak in 1989. Let's take a look.
This is one of the deadliest places on Earth. Every known virus is here. It's gonna seem very claustrophobic. People panic. They scream. You need to be straight with me. Can you do this?
Jax, something I need you to take a look at.
What are we testing for?
Ebola, Zaire.
Ebola's never been detected on U.S. soil.
There's a first time for everything. I have a husband, 2 kids. We have a duty to protect them.
You always fight so hard.
Ho! Ho! Ho!
Oh my God.
You're scaring the hell out of me, Nance.
I need to get back in there. There's a chance that it's Ebola.
They may already be in the midst of an outbreak. What did you do? Do you have any idea what kind of panic this will cause?
There's no cure, no vaccine. Mortality rate is 90%.
It's here.
You brought it back here? It spreads through bodily fluids. When we show each other affection.
It's learning. It's evolved. It will wipe us out if we don't get ahead of it.
You're gonna get us all killed.
I'm trying to keep my family safe.
I won't cover this up for you. Everybody put your hands together from the Hot Zone, the great Julianna Margulies.
Thank you, thank you,
Hi.
thank you.
That is intense.
Yes, a light comedy for all of you to enjoy.
It was hilarious. I watched a few episodes and I was rolling on the ground in terror.
Yeah,
Let's talk. This is something that has been in development for quite some time, right? I feel like last time you were here, we talked and you said this was something that you had been working on for a little while and trying to get up and running.
Not this one, I don't think.
Okay.
That wasn't this one, because this sort of came out of the blue for me.
Really?
Yes, actually, I was on my way to meet Nat Geo to talk about a project that I'm still working on called about the women of ENIAC. These are the first, the women that programmed the computer never got credit for it. It was all given to men, and it was actually 6 women, and it's an incredible story. So I was on my way to meet them to try and get this this story off the ground. And they had just come from a meeting with Ridley Scott, who has owned the rights to The Hot Zone with Linda Obst, I want to say for almost 3 decades. And then it was
The book was 89, or it was like 93 or something like that, right?
Yeah, the book came out in 94, and it was a New York Times bestseller. Ridley and Linda bought the rights to it right away.
I love Linda Obst.
I know, they're awesome. And Jodie Foster was set to, I think it was Jodie Foster was set to play Nancy Jacks, and Robert Redford was set to play the Liam Cunningham character. Anyway, at that time, Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman
yeah.
came out, and I guess I never saw it, but apparently it didn't do well. And the scientific community just ridiculed it and said none of that would have happened. That's not how you do it. Anyway, their whole movie fell apart, and they'd been trying to make it all these years. I think the silver lining is that this story needs to be told in 6 hours. You can't tell this story in a 2-hour movie. It's too devastating, complicated, and you have to get everything in there in order for people to understand what really happened on U.S. soil in 1989. So I went to pitch a story. Nat Geo had just bought it from Ridley to have Ridley and Linda produce it, and they said, by the way, your ex-boss just said you'd be great for this new project that we just decided to do. Will you do it? And that's how this all happened, sort of out of the blue.
Did you say yes on the spot, or did
No.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it for several reasons, because it didn't, just on hearing about it, I thought, I want to play a scientist, a pathologist, and I'm in labs and I'm dealing with Ebola. It didn't sound interesting for me. There was nothing, I didn't relate to it. And then they sent me the first 4 scripts, which was brilliant of them. I couldn't put them down. I read 4 of them in one sitting. And then I ran and got the book, and I read the book, and I was just blown away that I was so ignorant.
Yeah, I find like viruses and contagions and the whole idea of them to be sort of like a car crash kind of thing, where they're just horrible and terrifying, but you can't stop reading or watching a movie about them. There's something about them that is just, it's compelling and addictive, yet you're just going, but this is how we're all gonna die.
Yeah, someone asked me the other day, why do you think people like scary things? And I don't know that answer, because I don't watch scary movies because I get too scared. It doesn't bring me joy to feel panic, but I know a lot of people get an adrenaline rush off of it. Or this movie, Topher Grace said it best. We were doing press in LA a couple weeks ago, and he said, well, this is a popcorn thriller.
It is.
Until you realize it actually happened, and then it becomes a horror movie.
I would actually agree. I love horror movies, and I watch horror movies all the time, but they don't scare me. I just sort of enjoy the genre and the mechanics of the genre, but I never really get scared. I actually got scared while I was watching this, because this is the kind of thing that is terrifying.
It's terrifying, but here's the thing: what I love about this project, and why I'm so impressed that Nat Geo did it, is that it is shining a light on something people know nothing about. And it's taking the mystery away of what we need to do to combat this crazy epidemic. And that is to support science.
To fund and to believe science.
Right. So I feel like, I know there are many, 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 many science deniers out there. Sadly, one is in the White House. But... And I put it this way. My kid broke his arm when he was 2.5. I took him to the hospital because I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to reset an arm or how to make his pain go away. I studied to be an actor. That's why people watch me. They don't watch doctors, they watch actors, the same way we bring our sick children or ourselves to a doctor. It's the same with science. These people are studied. They understand what they're doing. They know how to do the research well enough to hopefully save the planet. Why would anyone who knows nothing about science say, there's no global warming? I don't understand that logic. It doesn't make any sense to me.
How often have you found your being an actor has led you to not have the skills necessary for anything outside of acting? I often find I have moments where I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm a TV host. I don't know how to do that.
It's the luxury of being an actor, is that you get to learn about things you're completely incompetent at doing in real life, and you get to pretend.
I know how to watch movies and talk about them. I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix the window.
Right, but you know how to do that. Other people don't. Yeah. So there are people who fix your windows the same way there are people who are scientists and can go into a biohazard level 4 lab and study the pathogens and figure out a vaccine. There's a vaccine for Ebola now. Mm-hmm. Not Ebola Zaire. And I think, one of the things that's scary about Ebola is that you can't see it. It's invisible, and it also is incredibly smart. It changes constantly. So it comes out, and then it retreats back into the jungle. It feeds on itself. It becomes a different kind of strain, and then it attacks again. And so what our researchers are doing, and my technical advisor, his name is Michael Smith, who happens to be Nancy Jax's real-life nephew, who pretty much taught me everything I knew how to do in the lab, because that stuff is pretty intricate and incredibly daunting if you're a mere thespian like myself.
Or TV host.
or TV host. He was in Sierra Leone in 2015, and he was there with doctors and scientists from all over the world, because this is a global issue. This isn't an isolated epidemic. in Africa. And in 1989, when it hit U.S. soil, there were no protocols. There was nothing. Nancy didn't. She was flying by the seat of her pants. Yeah. There's no protocols. What if? There's no handbook. This is what you do when you find Ebola in a monkey house in Western Virginia. And he was telling me, Michael Smith, that in 2015, there was a huge 11,000 people died. It wiped out villages, right? There's a 90% fatality rate. And he was risking his life every day with doctors from all over the world. And the guy that's in the White House at the time tweeted, "Don't let those stupid people back in our country." And he said it was so devastating because, of course, then everyone starts commenting on what kind of work these people are doing without knowing at all that they're risking their lives and that what they're doing is for us. That's for us. But none of us knew, unless you had read Richard Preston's book, that Ebola had been on U.S. soil. The research is imperative, and there's no funding. They have cut funding in Australia, in England, and America for scientific research. And scientific research is what's going to allow our children to have a world to live in. And so, for me, after I read it, I just thought, I need to be a part of something that maybe 4 people seeing it will say, I need to do this.
Science matters.
Science matters. Get our children interested. The Hot Zone, the book, is really big with middle schoolers. And I found that out through Nancy Jacks, who lectures all over the country. And she said, the trick is to get our young students interested in science, because it takes years to do what she did, years of training. And we need more scientists, and we need more support behind it.
There's a strange sense of people, I think in this country, voters forgetting everything that is at stake and just sort of voting against it, like voting to cut science funding because they don't necessarily see specifically how it benefits them at this point. And I don't really know how to fix that other than shows like this that show how much science is needed and how much it can actually protect the health and well-being of everybody.
Yeah, I guess until it affects them personally. I'm watching all these tornadoes happening and these floods happening in Missouri and Oklahoma and all across, and people watching their homes literally float down the river. And I thought, maybe now they'll pay attention to global warming, because that's part of it, right? Yeah. It's what's happening with the measles epidemic right now. It is. I asked Nancy about it last week, and I said, how do you feel when you read about all 22,000 cases, of kids getting the measles? And she said, there's a vaccine. I don't know why this is happening. Well, this is ridiculous. I think people, and I think we've all, people who believe in climate change and global warming are labeled elitists, which I don't know why. It just means you read and you learned and you believe people who have a degree in something you don't have a degree in. So I guess it's elitist to say this, but I always thought education was an incredible gift to give our children, and knowledge is power, right? So why would we want anyone not to have the power to learn?
Another great gift is not measles. Not having measles.
Yes, exactly. And I have to tell you, my kid, so there's the MMR vaccine, and I was nervous about it, right? I mean, anyone who's a parent has heard the other side of the argument, which is it causes autism. Well,
largely debunked at
that
this
is
point.
Scientifically unproven. It is not true at all. And I did the due diligence. I read everything I could get my hands on. I asked my pediatrician, if this was your kid, would you give them an MMR? Because I'm hearing this and I'm hearing that. I had doubts, and then I read. And every single thing pointed to, give your kid that shot.
Yeah.
I didn't have chickenpox as a kid, and there's a chickenpox vaccine now. My kid had one. And I thought I was immune. My mother put me in all those rooms with the chickenpox parties. I never got them.
Wait, what? I'm sorry.
Don't you
Chickenpox
remember?
parties?
Am I too old? Have I just outed myself? Yeah. So when someone had the chickenpox on the block, your parents would
Hey,
take
come
you
over,
to
we're
their
having a
house.
chickenpox
Yeah, because
party.
you want to get it over with. You want everyone to get them and get it over with. Now there's a vaccine, so my kids doesn't have them. I got adult chickenpox.
Which can also lead to shingles, I believe,
It
as
can
well.
lead to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, and shingles can lead to. A friend of mine got them at 40, and she ended up being blind in one eye because it went into her retina. Wow. I have now since I had the chickenpox, which I can tell you, is truly one of the most painful. Thank God I don't own a gun because I would have shot myself. I couldn't. So painful. But I went and got a shingles vaccine because after seeing my girlfriend with the eye thing, and anyway, just these vaccines are there not to upset anyone. They're there to help you. And I don't understand why people don't see that. I don't know. I just think people need to start reading and opening up their minds that it's not an elitist thing. It's part of our world, and that's why we have cures. The same way you take an aspirin for a headache.
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, I think that when we say like people need to read and open their minds, they feel like they are because they're on the internet and they're reading forums and they're reading, I mean, the initial, I believe, not to go down an anti-vaxxer tangent or anything, but the guy who originally posted about it or wrote about it, I think it was in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it was largely debunked pretty soon after, and it may be debunked that it was in somewhere legitimate, and that's where it stemmed from, but he had no basis for really
whatsoever.
saying that either, and that sort of snowballed into this whole movement that largely was created online in forums and people playing, internet detective, which...
Yeah, it's just dangerous, and I think obviously we all have to form our own opinion of things, but I just urge everyone to
get vaccinated.
Vaccinated and to read up on things not on a computer, but actually go and look at the articles written by real doctors and real scientists. And my 11-year-old looked at me the other night, and he goes, Mom, we have 12 years before we can reverse global warming. What are we doing about it? And I thought, I didn't think about things like that when I was 11. I was playing, in the backyard. Those kind of things didn't weigh on me, but they weigh on these kids because this is the world they're inheriting. And instead of making it a political issue, we need to make it a human issue and stop the madness. We have 12 years. That's it. So, that's all part of, I feel like the hot zone.
Well, do you find that so much of your work or the stuff that you are working on and developing, I know that you are also developing a project about journalists as well, right? Did you find that after ending The Good Wife, which in its own way was socially relevant very, very often within that show, that projects that you wanted to devote your time to had some sort of social impact or felt like they could be relevant in that way?
I don't think I really thought about.
Is it just what you end up being interested in?
It's just what I end up being interested in. These roles sort of fall on my doorstep and they excite me. The aftermath of how they affect people or what kind of an impact they have, that's just a bonus. It's the actual writing and the characters that excite me. But I guess for some reason I have been able to play these sort of strong women. I mean, maybe it's because that's how I'm perceived, but I think I just got lucky with good writing. And then you realize how it affects people. I can't tell you what it means to me when people stop me. And I was just in France on a jury for a television festival. So I know it's not just in this country. It's in a lot of places in the world, thanks to streaming and people watching ER now, which is so funny to hear someone scream Carol Hathaway 20 years later. I'm like, really? And they're only 19 years old. So there's this whole resurgence because of streaming. But people coming up to me saying, I became a nurse because of you. I went to law school because of you. And of course it's not because of me. It's because of a character I played that someone much smarter than me wrote. But it's thrilling that there's some sort of positive response.
Is it a better feeling when they say that than when they say, I became an actor because of you?
God, I don't think anyone's ever said that to me.
Sorry.
Wow.
That's a whole other existential dilemma I didn't mean to bring up, maybe.
Do you know, I don't think anyone's ever said that. No, I would feel just as good if someone said that, actually. I really would, because that means that someone's inspired.
Yeah.
You want to inspire people.
You have always been politically active, or at least socially engaged. You are a big proponent and a sponsor, if you will, of Aaron's Law.
I am.
Can you talk about Aaron's Law a little bit?
Yeah.
What's going on right now?
Happily. So Aaron's Law has now passed in 36 states. Aaron's Law is a mandate for public schools for 1 hour a year to teach children from age appropriately, children from kindergarten through 12th, safe touch, not safe touch, that they have the tools to speak out against sexual abuse, that there's a good secret, which is it's grandma's surprise party, and there's a bad secret, don't tell anyone, I'll kill you and your family. So Aaron's Law, and it's working. There are incredible stories. It passed in Maryland, and a third grade class after the hour of a police officer, a woman talking to the kids about that they had their own voice, and if anyone was abusing them, they could speak out. And this little girl stayed. She couldn't lift her head up off the desk, and everyone left, and they said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "My mother's boyfriend has been raping me since I was 3. He's in jail for the rest of his life."
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And it's not just Maryland. It happened in Illinois. 2 girls came forward, and the guy is now in jail for 45 years. And then it happened in Oregon 2 months ago. All of these kids, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, who finally realized they had a voice. So this has passed in 36 states. I'm mortified it has not passed in New York State.
What is the holdup in states where it hasn't passed?
They keep saying that they don't do mandates, but that's a lie. They do mandates. We do fire drills. We teach our children stranger danger. But sexual abuse happens 9 times out of 10 out of someone you know, not from a stranger. Mm-hmm. It's usually a family member or a close friend. So that doesn't work here. It's a no-brainer to me why we wouldn't give our children the tools to protect themselves. And by the way, 3 men are in prison now, which is stopping other children who didn't know they were in the line of fire from getting sexually abused, right? These brave little girls came forward, and it's not just girls, it's boys too. And it's such a great tool to give children that they have a voice because they feel voiceless. And the only people who should be scared of this law are the perpetrators. So I don't know, but Erin Marin, who was a victim of sexual abuse from the age of 6 until she was 13, made this law. She's so brave. And I gave her an award once 7 years ago, Glamour Women of the Year or something, and I didn't really know anything about it. And I stood there listening to her acceptance speech, tears streaming down my face, and I went up to her afterwards and I said, "What can I do? How can I help?" And she said what's shocking is the reaction to me helping her is a lot of people have asked her if I was sexually abused. And I thought, and I wasn't. I mean, if I was, I would have said it. But they didn't understand why I was helping her.
Right.
And I said, that's so bizarre. Why wouldn't I help you? I love children. I have one. I want kids to be protected from these atrocities that ruin your life, that form who you are at a very young age. Anyway, so she is a force to be reckoned with, and we are bringing it back to Albany and trying it again this year.
It's crazy that it hasn't passed in New York.
I urge everyone to write to their representatives and tell them it's something that we should have in this state, and so we can all stop being embarrassed that our children don't have their own toolbox.
Yeah, that is a stain. Has it even gone up for a vote or anything?
Yeah, and every time it passes unanimously on the floor, and then this one woman, I'm not going to say her name, but anyway, she was the chancellor of the schools. Anyway, she's out now. So she's no longer there, and we have a Democratic House. So I'm hoping that this year will be the year. But we need as much public support as possible to help these kids.
Is it a financial thing that someone would say we can't? I mean, it can't cost that much money to have an officer of the law go into a school and
It's no money. It's volunteer. There's no money. It's 1 hour a year. So I actually said this to Erin because we did CBS News on May 29th is doing an interview with her and I, and they're going to Chicago and you'll see this law in action, and they actually spoke to one of the young victims. So it is getting out there. But I said to Erin, maybe it's because the word is sex. Maybe what we should use is not sexual abuse. Maybe we should use something else, because I wonder if that's what's stopping these lawmakers. They think that they're going to get sex education or something. So maybe we need to call it something else.
But also sex education is a good thing too.
Well, of course, and it's in schools. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But it's the same, it's a no-brainer to me. But look at Alabama. I mean,
It's heartbreaking.
There's no rhyme or reason to any of this, and so
Georgia,
I don't know.
Alabama and Ohio, and I think Missouri as well now. It's
Missouri, Georgia.
Absolutely heartbreaking. What have you thought of some of the production, how the producers and actors and actresses who have pulled out of shooting in Georgia? I
say keep doing it.
Yeah.
Do it everywhere. Make your voices heard. Hit them. Follow the money, right? Hit them where it hurts. It is shocking to me that it's 2019 and women have to put up with this shit. Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
sorry. It infuriates me. Old white men telling women what they can do with their bodies is repulsive, and it's abhorrent. And I don't know if anyone watches Fleabag, but I'm a huge fan.
The best, right?
It's the best. And this season, I was just finishing it up yesterday. And Kristen Scott Thomas has such a great monologue. Do you know the monologue?
Yeah,
where she goes, the reason men have to make up these ridiculous rules in war is because they don't have their period. They don't bleed. They don't hurt. They don't give birth. And they don't have to go through menopause. So they create these ridiculous wars so they can feel some sort of pain. And then and she goes into this whole rampage. And I was like, oh my God, this is so true.
That scene is amazing.
It's so good. If you haven't seen it, it's such a great thing. But it's not about man bashing. It's about respecting a woman's choice, and it's about our health. That's what it's about. And I think the nail in the coffin was victims of rape and incest. Are we going back to the Middle Ages? I
can't imagine being a human being and looking at another human being and saying to them, you just got raped by your father, but yes, you must carry that baby to term. And right. You're 11.
And that's what I was going to say. And a child. So a child gets abused, and the doctor who would give that abortion to a child will go to jail longer than the rapist. How is that normal in this country? But you have to look at the upside of everything. So I do think that we are up in arms now. And I think that this might have been the needle that went too far.
I think that we're going to find that this bill they're going to keep putting bills like this forward in a lot of these states, but this bill specifically has gone too far to I don't even think it'll make it to the Supreme Court, actually.
No, I don't either. And I think that the anger, I know that I feel, and everyone else who believes in a freedom of choice. And by the way, if you don't want to have an abortion, great. Good for you. I don't
Robertson
care.
Said this bill went too far. Right. Pat Robertson did.
Yeah, I mean, it's just religion, politics, and healthcare. No. Yeah. And I don't know why these men who made this law, or think they made this law, because I think it won't go far, but think that they have the right to do that, except that there must be some sort of fear. It seems like a control thing, because it's medieval to me, especially when all of it. But this is about women's health. And so, I upped my monthly to Planned Parenthood. And I mean, that's all we can do, right, is just support these people and join in on the fight and get it out there.
Yellow Fund as well, I think it's called. That's actually in Alabama, is a great charity as well that works to help provide abortion care for women still in Alabama.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony of all of this is that all these people are excited because Trump is in the White House, and I can pretty much imagine how many abortions he's funded in his life.
Oh my God.
It's true. I mean, he's a sleazy, cheating, horrible person, and this is what they think. It's just all so hypocritical. I just want everyone to wake up.
We can go into that for a really
Let's
long
not.
time.
Let's stay happy. Yeah. Let's stay happy with the hot zone and abortions. No.
How do you stay happy through all this? I have found that personally I disengage in huge ways at times. Like for the first year, 2016 to 2017, I was watching the news, reading everything, and now I've reached a point where it's like, maybe I'll read the paper on the weekend and sort of front to back, go through a New York Times on a Saturday or something, but I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want anyone to yell at me about it because it's all bad. I know, and I will go to the protest. I will vote. I will do everything that I can, but I can't live with that anxiety all the time.
Too much anxiety. And you're right to do that. I had to do that too. And the truth is what you read all day long will be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, I try and read the paper in the morning, not too much of it because it's so horrible. And I don't read anything or watch any news after 7 p.m. because then I don't sleep. And I was waking up sweating and panicking and crying, and it brutal. Bourbon helps.
That it does. We instituted a no cable news policy in my house not because I would yell about the news, but I would yell at the news.
Right.
Like because I hated the way they talked about it and covered it, and it was just too much.
Well, and it's toxic. So what you bring to the next room wherever you're going. I was listening to. I walk around New York City, listening to podcasts. It's just my favorite thing to do. It's the only time I get to listen to things. And so instead of, jumping on this train, I'll leave 20 minutes earlier and get a good walk in listening to podcasts. And I was listening to Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul Sundays, and she had Thich Nhat Hanh on. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist monk, and he's an incredible, peaceful man. And she said to him in it, "Do you watch the news?" And he said, "No." And she said, "Well, then how do you stay informed?" And he goes, "It will always find me."
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, right, because then it's the same thing repeated over and over and over. Everyone can't wait to say, "Did you hear about this? Did you hear about this?" And we have a carnival barker as our president. So there's always going to be the next event or the next temper tantrum or the next horrible thing that he's done, pardoning war criminals. But why do I need to hear that today? I will find out about it. Right now, it's not going to help me in my day. So I try to stay away from that. And I've been reading a lot of great memoirs.
Oh, yeah. I'm very fiction. I just read fiction all the time.
Oh, and fiction too. I just started reading, and I get into bed at night and I just take out a book and I read and I sleep much better. And then in the morning, I see what's going on and I try to do what I can in terms of how can I help where. I have no power over this. I'm going to go about my day and try and be a good citizen and a good human being. Because what else can you do?
Did you hear about this? Has become my least favorite phrase in the world. Because as soon as someone says to me, 90% of the time when someone says, "Did you hear about this?" I go, "What the hell happened now?" Like the immediate response is like, "You're going to tell me something terrible."
I know.
It's never going to be like, "Did you hear about this? Mark had a baby." It's like, it's always like, "Did you hear about this?"
I know.
The president, said this horrible thing and whatever.
I think Mayor Pete said it best. I love him.
Are you a fan?
I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm still waiting to sort of see everything, and I don't know about enough of them yet, but I just love his reactions, which basically someone said, well, how do you feel about all these horrible tweets? And he said, I don't pay attention, because if you get in the pen with the pig who loves mud and you have a fight, the pig is going to end up happy and you're going to end up dirty.
Yeah.
And I love that analogy, which is like, don't get in the ring, Draw that circle around yourself and keep just standing back. And eventually they're going to have to fall in your space and get knocked out.
Absolutely. Or
And
just
they'll get so tired of flailing. It's that old Buddhist thing, anyway.
Or treat it like a pig, where you stay outside of the pen and you go, "Ha ha ha, look at this stupid little thing running
and then
around
fry
in
'em up.
circles." Exactly. Yeah. Slice them up and make some bacon.
Make some bacon.
A couple questions from the audience. What do we got?
Yeah.
Hey there.
Hi. So I'm just wondering, while shooting the hot zone, if you felt super cognizant of just all the germs around the crafty table, or what was that like?
I'm a big
think-
hand sanitizer.
Yeah. I was always that person that was, especially with my kid, I was like, it's been on the floor 10 seconds. You're fine. Germs are good for you. It builds your immune system. And then I did the hot zone, and now I carry hand sanitizer in my purse. And riding the subway's been fascinating. It's a whole new world because I'm like, you just touched the pole and now you're touching your nose. Oh my God. But here's the worst part. The worst part is the infectious disease specialist, Michael Smith, who trained me, said, and now you're gonna watch what happens. Watch how many times the person you're talking to touches their face. People touch their face over 1,000 times a day, and we do it without realizing it. You know, you do this, constantly. Because infectious disease specialists never touch their face and they never get sick. So watch now. Now you're going to be very conscious. I'm so cognizant of every time. I'm like, no, don't. But yeah, I've become much more aware, and I try not to be crazy about it, but I definitely wash my hands too much, probably. And, yeah.
One more.
Hi.
Hi.
So you talked a little bit about this before, but I wanted to know, how much did you spend any time like inside of an actual lab or anything like that before you were on the show to prepare for it? Like, what was your preparation like?
So
You get to wear like the big biohazard outfit.
I didn't wear the biohazard until the biohazard hazmat suit until my first day on the set, which is when I discovered I was extremely claustrophobic. Not a good time, too late to back out. It was brutal, really hard for me. But the lab work, I got to work with Michael Smith for maybe a total of 6 hours in the lab with him, 3 hours and 3 hours, because it was overwhelming. He was showing me so much stuff so quickly, and for him it's old hat, and for me I was like, wait, slow down. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a scientist.
I'm an actor.
I'm a stupid actor. And he was on the set the day we shot the really big stuff in the lab that I was doing, which when I had to study it with those huge gloves on because you can't really hold the things as easily as when I was learning without. And so I probably had overall 6 hours of training and then a lot of praying. Yeah.
Thank you.
The Hot Zone is going to be on Nat Geo. Is it Monday?
Monday the 27th, 28th, and 29th. We're doing 2 episodes a night, so it's sort of this all-in-one
Oh, amazing.
3-night event series. Yeah.
And it's so good. Congratulations
Thank you
on
so
it. Everybody
much.
give a huge round of applause for Julianna Margulies.
Thank you.